It's a bridge between kids' secular and Jewish lives. It's a bridge between their Jewish and secular lives. How many people here have ever heard a kid say, when I'm not in religious school, it's real school, that their public school is real school, or my other life is my real life, okay? What a Kid's Mensch Handbook does is it gives the kids situations that are, quote, real in their secular lives. So they'll understand that there really is no difference between their Jewish lives and their secular lives. It's all together. Their entire life is their Jewish life. That they can make decisions Jewishly, that they can think Jewishly, that there is Jewish wisdom that can guide them in their actions and in their choices. Okay. You know, kids have a lot of questions, especially in 4th and 5th grade when they're thinking about the kind of person they're going to be. They want to be the kind of person who people like. They want to be well-liked. They want to have friends. And there are Jewish answers to how to be a person that people like. And that's detailed in the Kid's Mensch Handbook. It can also help you to help your students understand that it's important to be a good person just because. Okay? And that's a term that we use a lot in the book. Just because. It's good that people like you, and it's good to be popular, and it's good to be respected, and it's good to have this positive feeling between people. But at the end of the day, Jewish tradition teaches us that it's important to be a good person just because it's the right thing to do. If you tell that to a group of students, they won't believe you. Because it's a hard thing to grasp that I should be a good person just because. So that's why a Kid's Mensch Handbook gives very specific examples and stories, and we're going to take a look at those to help convince students that it's a good thing to be a mensch just because. Yes?
What do kids think?
What?
If you take off the because, what would they replace it with?
If you took
off, it's good to be a good person just because. What will they answer?
What would they answer? Why to be a good person?
Yeah.
So I don't get in trouble. I would imagine, and then I'll turn the question around to you. I would imagine that most kids would say, so I don't get in trouble, so I can get good grades, so people will like me. When you ask your students, why should you be a good person, what do you think their answers would be? I have to or else I'll get in trouble. Which is a very young, which is a sort of 5th grade and under answer because they're worried about parental approval and authority. But around 4th and 5th grade, they're starting to think about responsibility for their own actions and what it means to do the right thing when you're not going to get in trouble and there's no danger. Yes?
Playing devil's advocate, this is not just what we do in Jewish school. I do this in regular school. It's a value across the.
Right.
I teach K through 5th grade right to read, and this is in all our classes. This is in our code, the same kind of thing.
Right.
It's Jewish. It's just person taking
right.
across the board.
Right. One thing that's exactly right. Jewish values do sort of cross the boundary into the real world. That's something that we were thinking about, and that's something we did a lot of research on when creating this book, is where did these values come from originally? We stopped short of saying, you know, Jews were really the first people to think about ethical behavior with one another. But we say, in some ways, that in fact you should be proud to be Jewish because Jews have taught one another and have taught the world to a certain extent that ethical behavior is the way that we should live our lives. And there's a chapter on mitzvot and why we perform mitzvot. And the goal there was to resonate with their secular lives and to have them understand that Jewish values aren't just Jewish, they're how I make my decisions every day. So, okay. By the way, if you have any questions, comments, thoughts, go ahead and raise your hand. Yes?
I have a comment
Yes.
about the because question.
Yes.
I think a real strong reason is because I want you to approve of me.
Yes.
You know, I think we're kind of think it's not just, I don't want to be punished, so I'm afraid of authority. I think
Right.
there's such a strong desire of kids and
Sure.
everybody else just to be approved of
Right.
and feel like they're not bad and that they're good. So they
Right.
don't have to feel the discomfort of being bad.
Exactly, and just as we, as big kids, seek approval and that positivity, certainly kids are extremely sensitive to it at that age, and especially as peer pressure is growing and they're starting to think about who will my friends be and what community will I belong to. That approval is so important. So that's something that's going to help find in there.
With older children, a more difficult concept which Flippy brought out is not just, there's a difference between being good and being a good person.
Right.
And that could be brought out, of course, in older children. And there you have it. Well, I'm going to be getting as much being a good person when nobody's around. The
Right.
tree in the forest doesn't make noise.
I'm glad you brought that up, because we actually spend a fair portion of the book talking about ourselves. You would think a book on Jewish values is going to talk exclusively about our relationships with one another, but in fact, the first 4 chapters of the book, out of 9, talk about this idea of our relationships with ourselves and our relationships with God. The concept of B'Tselem Elohim, that we are created in God's image, that we contain a spark of the divine, that because of that, each of us is divine and should respect ourselves and find this holiness in ourselves and recognize the holiness in ourselves and respect ourselves as a result. So we spent a lot of time talking about our relationship with ourselves. And then once kids understand and sort of find their center, so to speak, in terms of how they see themselves, how they treat themselves physically, emotionally, then we start talking about how to be a mensch to others. Yes?
In terms of shifting their sense of why to just because and away from just reward, and yet also wanting to reinforce in real life, how do you feel about rewarding what you see as mensch behavior and then just having kids do it so they'll get through it?
That's a hard question. And it reminds me, I was a religious school director for 6 years, and I remember the hardest thing I ever had to fight for with the religious school board, and maybe a lot of educators in here. How many educators are in here, school directors, by the way? I don't know if anyone's ever experienced a conversation with their school board or their parents over whether or not it's appropriate to reward positive behavior. I remember early in my career, I had this program called Mitzvah of the Month, where we had a mitzvah for each month of the year, and they performed specific tasks, and their parents signed off on it. And at the end of the year, if you did all of them, you got an ice cream party. Now, this became a huge debate, not only in the school board, but on the temple board, as whether or not it's appropriate to give kids ice cream for being good. And I argued for that. I thought, they're doing a good job. We want them to associate being Jewish and being a mensch with good stuff in life, with pleasure and positive experiences. But a lot of people argued with me. People fought with me and people fought against me. In the end, the ice cream party was gone. And it's a hard question, and since then I've really given a lot of thought to whether or not that was right, and in writing this book I constantly ask myself, is it right? Now, in this book I couldn't give kids ice cream, so it wasn't an option. But we can still give kids things. See, it's a tough question when you talk about rewards, because we tend to think of rewards as physical things that we give. We do a lot of gold stars, okay, in our lives and in school. But should we give gold stars, or can we give something? Is it possible to give something that will last longer and ideally for the rest of their lives? And I think that's the ultimate goal. If we can do that without the physical thing, then we've really got the best of both worlds.